Welcome back to the Play by Play Podcast YouTube channel, where on today's episode, we will be doing a full preview / prediction about the 2025-2026 NFL season for the AFC South. I want to thank you guys so much for your support on recent episodes, and I always want to encourage you guys, if you are watching this on YouTube, please feel free to go down below, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, comment, and share with your friends. And if you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on all social medias, that being TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those ads are going to be down below in the description, where on all those social medias you will get to see my reaction to the latest breaking news within the NFL, NBA, and newly inside of combat sports, as well as never getting to miss for whenever the podcast uploads an episode. And without further ado, guys, let's not waste any time. Let's get into this episode and predict what the heck is going to happen within the AFC South. So the AFC South has definitely been one of the most inconsistent divisions in the NFL's history, to be honest. There hasn't really been a dominant leader in the AFC South's history. However, that is not to say that this division has not had recent success. In fact, within the past 6 or 7 years, there have been teams that have been able to make big time runs within the AFC South within the playoffs. You had, I believe it was 2018, 2019, when you had the Jacksonville Jaguars led by Blake Bortles going head to head with the New England Patriots in the AFC Conference Championship game. Remember Saxonville? That was a big time year for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You had the Tennessee Titans then the year following that, facing off against the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, following them defeating the New England Patriots to send Tom Brady to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that following offseason. You had the Houston Texans in the past 2 years being able to make it past the wild card round in both of their matchups. The Jacksonville Jaguars a couple of years back with Trevor Lawrence being able to pull off a big time comeback victory against the Los Angeles Chargers, being down, I believe, like 28-3, which was big time. So this is definitely a division that could make some big time noise. But like I mentioned, it has been truly inconsistent and at times pretty weak, to be honest. Despite them being able to make big time runs within the postseason, there hasn't really been a lot of dominant big time regular season wins coming from the AFC South. There's not really been those 13, 14, 15 win seasons within the AFC South, and majority of the time, you see these teams virtually bunched together in very similar positions. And it makes a little bit of sense, seeing as a lot of these teams aren't really in big time designated areas to be wanted. Of course, Jacksonville is in Florida, but I think that you would favor Miami as a bigger destination. You have the Tennessee Titans, obviously in the Midwest, not really a big time market and whatnot. Houston, in Texas, but again, you have Dallas in there to really take over the that side of things, and then Indianapolis, once again, another Midwestern state, not really big time market. So it has been difficult for these teams to go out and grab big time free agents, and that's why we've seen over the years these teams begin to build more and more throughout the draft. But I'm not going to waste any more of your guys' time. I am not going to talk about this anymore. I'm just going to hop right into these previews and predictions. If you guys do not know how this is going to work, go back in time to the last prediction that we did with the AFC West. I will explain for everything that we do within that and how I will describe it. Or if you don't want to watch that, I'm sure that you will catch on. It's not really that difficult at all. So we start at the bottom of the division with the Tennessee Titans, who I have rated the second to last worst team within the NFL, number 31. Their 2024 record is listed at 3-14. My prediction for them, I have them being better at a record of 4-13. So 1+ win here for the Tennessee Titans. Now, when looking at this overview for the Titans, I will have to say that obviously it does appear that they have a better record. Again, I have them between that 4-13 to about, 6-11 type mark, but that is mostly due to them having an easier schedule, and that comes to them being in a much easier division. We're going to see where a lot of these other division rivals obviously place. This is some of the reason why the Titans are able to grab more wins. The AFC South is as vulnerable as it's ever ever been, where you have teams like the Texans losing key pieces like Laramie Tunsil and Stephon Diggs, and you still have the Colts and Jags still trying to either put pieces around a quarterback or find a quarterback to be able to lead their offense, which we know is the most important piece on the field. But back to Tennessee. Their first number one overall draft pick this year was Cam Ward. And while I did not believe that Cam Ward was obviously as valuable as Travis Hunter, as an Abdul Carter, even maybe as somebody like a Mason Graham or whatnot, hugging in those trenches on the defensive end, I do think that second-year head coach Brian Callahan just could not gamble on another year of having Will Levis. That was a disastrous year last year, and one that Will Levis honestly was just trying to do a little bit too much, right? He was just trying to create things that just simply weren't there. He didn't have the best offense in the world. He definitely didn't have a great offensive line whatsoever. But doing things like, fumbling the ball and trying to throw it out and get it to a lateral and whatnot, little mistakes like that, those are things that you just can't continue to repeat. And this is his job on the line. And he clearly wanted, stepping into his first head coaching job, this new situation, he wanted to get the guy that he wants behind the wheel. And not only that, not only did he give himself a distributor, but the Titans also added pieces to what I mentioned was a very struggling offensive line. Dan Moore Jr., a lot of people would look at that as a big time overpay, as I would myself. I wouldn't really see him as the most valuable tackle, especially coming over from the San Francisco 49ers, but that was a starting offensive tackle and one that is probably more improved from who they had last year. And then Kevin Zeitler, who is aging, but definitely will help Ward and is a big time veteran presence in the trenches of that offensive line. So you look at their depth chart now, you have Dan Moore, you have Floyd Cushenberry in the center position, looking for that guy to make another big step following coming in his second year inside of this offense since coming from the Denver Broncos. He was great in my favorite team hometown of Denver. And then you have JC Latham, the rookie, on the right side. So now, from what they paid for, they believe now that they have 4 out of the 5 offensive lineman pieces, which definitely is big time important. I think the question for Tennessee will really come down to, obviously, what will Cam Ward be able to do? Will his style be able to translate well into the NFL game? Him being a little bit more nonchalant, very, very calm in the pocket, but it's a very, it's a stand-up-ish, very stuck-up type of style where he has a very, very weird throwing motion. We have seen styles like that be successful in the past with the likes of guys like Lamar Jackson and whatnot. Obviously, he had a very similar style to Cam Ward, and a lot of people didn't believe that he was going to be successful. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, arguably the best quarterback in the league as of right now. So Ward, he has a big time arm. He's obviously just going to have to work on big time things like accuracy and whatnot. The big problem for Tennessee, in my opinion, when it comes to Cam Ward outside the offensive line, is they didn't really equip him with too many weapons to really work out. Calvin Ridley and Tyler Lockett are solid, solid veteran pieces, but are both kind of real more deep threats with their speed ability on the outside edge. You have Treylon Burks, who is a younger guy, but he hasn't showcased a lot, in previous years. And they lost Nick Westbrook-Akine, who was a big time piece for them, especially within the red zone, recording 9 total touchdowns last year, majority of those coming within the red zone. He was a big time red zone threat, and one that came in very, very clutch for them last year. So that is a big loss. So the question for them is, did they put enough pieces around him? Obviously, you have Tony Pollard in the backfield. You're going to want to see him take a step forward now that he has a much improved offensive line. So if they could get that type of unpredictability in the running game, then I think that will make things a little bit easier for Cam Ward. But if not, I think that it's still going to be a big time growing pains for Tennessee, especially having, opening games like a big time defense away from home against the Denver Broncos. But ultimately, I think that it will be solid for Cam Ward's development. Then we move to who is third in the division, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not far along, rated number 27 in the league, in my opinion. Had a record last year of 4-13. I have them going about the same, so at about 4-13, 5-12. So them in Tennessee are virtually tied at this point. So notable additions for them obviously were Travis Hunter at number 2 overall, trading out for him. You have Caleb Ransome Bransall, Jordan Lewis, and then some notable losses. They lost both Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk. Now, the Jags were the worst overall defense last year when it comes to defensive rating. And I think that they did a great job this offseason at filling in certain holes, mainly within that secondary. Obviously, with the addition of Travis Hunter, you put Jordan Lewis in there and Caleb Bransall being able to plug in there inside of the slot. The big time question, obviously, is going to be, can Travis Hunter be able to be effective playing both ways within the NFL? You have newly signed head coach Liam Cohen saying that they are fully bought into that is the direction that they want to go with him. Is his body going to be able to hold up? Is his skill level going to be able to hold up? I personally believe that he was much better of a talented cornerback than he was with a receiver, but those receiver snaps are definitely going to take the toll. But on the defensive side, he definitely could be a shoe-in number one type of corner. I think that he needs to add on a little bit more weight to his frame, but he has the IQ. He sees the plays very well. He's always one step ahead, and he sticks like glue in man-to-man coverage against that. Outside of that, I think it really comes down to the pass rush still struggling, though, for Jacksonville. And while the defense, still upgrading in certain areas, you have the offense absolutely imploding with both Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram leaving. And this comes at a time where, not only is Travis Hunter figuring out, not only do you lose those pieces, but Trevor Lawrence is trying to figure out what his identity really is in this league as of right now. Can he still be a suitable starting quarterback within this? Sure, he has a more suitable creative offensive mind in Liam Cohen. You have a guy in Travis Hunter. Liam Cohen, by the way, who, was able to take over for Dave Canales in Tampa Bay and be able to continue to push Baker Mayfield's development and style of play in Tampa. So you're hoping that he can finally go out and unlock Trevor Lawrence and at least limit a lot of the turnover problems that he's had in previous seasons. But you're not giving him a lot of things to work with to be able to look for in the offensive game. Brian Thomas Jr. took a big step up. You have Travis Hunter. They did sign Dwame Brown to play within the slot, although I don't think that he is really a suitable slot receiver. But Brenton Strange at tight end, the tackles on either side are not great. Patrick McCarry on the interior at right guard. Ezra Cleveland's okay at left guard. There's just not a lot when it comes to this offensive line. And with the offensive line struggling and Travis Etienne in the previous year taking a little bit of a step back himself, only averaging 558 yards on the year, I think that he was also dealing with a little bit of injury issues as well. But with him struggling, you have an offense that is less diversified within this. And because of that, a lot more of the pressure is going to be put on Lawrence and Cohen. And with the lack of weapons, really, when you're thinking about how much of a toll it's going to be on Hunter to be able to play both sides of the ball, there's just not around Lawrence for me personally to see them be very successful. Now, again, they will be able to pick up a couple of wins, just seeing as base as this division is very weak, but the offense for me, I think, is very limited. And at the end of the day, you have to put points on the board. And when you also fail to mention that the fact that their pass rush is not there, so that they're going to have a really difficult job being able to get to the quarterback, that tends to slow down the secondary. I think that there's going to be a lot of points still being put up on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I just don't believe that they're going to be able to properly respond. Then you go to the Indianapolis Colts in second place in the division, which, trust me, doesn't mean much in this case. They are one spot above the Jacksonville Jaguars, rated 26th within the league, in my opinion. Their record last year was 8-9. I have them going much worse at 5-12. Some notable additions for them were Charvarius Ward, cornerback from the San Francisco 49ers. They signed Daniel Jones out of free agency, quarterback previously with the New York Giants. And then they drafted away Tyler Warren from Penn State, the tight end. And a big-time notable loss for them was Ryan Kelly, the starting center in the middle. And once again, this is another very talented offense that is suffering because of quarterback play. You look at this offense: Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Adonai Mitchell, and now Tyler Warren. I mean, this is one of the most dynamic young offenses within the league, especially when you have, specific archetypes like Alec Pierce being able to be used as a deep threat. I've said this many times on this channel. There are no more excuses for Anthony Richardson going forward. This is his final year to prove that he can do this, that he can lead the Colts to success. And if not, that's it for him, and it's obvious that they did that when signing Daniel Jones. And of course, Jones isn't very much a competition, but they're starting to run out of patience. They were expecting for him to be developed a lot more than he has been at this point. And the accuracy just isn't there. He's missing deep throws, overthrowing by a lot. He's having some turnover issues. He's still getting hurt. With when you have Shane Steichen, an offensive creative-minded head coach, a young head coach, when you have this type of offense, your offense needs to be producing, and the Indianapolis Colts just aren't. Now, Charvarius Ward, trading for Charvarius Ward, I do like that as a number one corner option. And the secondary now has definitely improved with adding him alongside both Nick Cross and Cameron Bynum, back there at the safety position. But once again, if you don't have the quarterback, you don't have the answer. And Richardson just has not shown the ability to put consistent games together. Daniel Jones is not the insurance you need. So in my opinion, I would actually look for 6th round pick quarterback Riley Leonard from Notre Dame to potentially grab the starting job in the last couple of games of the season. Like, if this team is really, really struggling towards the end of the season, especially if they're having big time offensive line troubles, if they're not able to get that running game going, if the passing offense just isn't there, Riley Leonard, a guy who just led Notre Dame to the national championship, who knows how to play in big time games, I would not be surprised if he ends up getting some starting minutes towards the end of the season and replacing those two, because it seems like the Colts are just on a very, very short circuit of patience right now. And I'm not sure if we've heard anything really from the Colts camp of hearing that Anthony Richardson has taken the steps needed to really become a franchise starting quarterback. And finally, ending it off at number 17th in the league, finishing first in the AFC South, we have the Houston Texans at 10-7 last year. I have them going worse at a record of 9-8. Notable additions were Christian Kirk from division rival Jacksonville Jaguars. They drafted Jaden Higgins and Ariante Irsay, and then they also lost Laramie Tunsil and Stephon Diggs. Now, the Texans went to work, in my opinion, when it came to day 2 of the NFL draft, and really, really saved themselves when it came to this offseason, because after not having a first-round pick, after trading away their franchise tackle in Laramie Tunsil, after getting rid of Stephon Diggs, who, yes, was dealing with injuries last year, they were able to go out and still get a starting caliber center in Ariante Irsay from Minnesota University, and also a dynamic, speedy receiver in Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State, who they hope can pick up where Stephon Diggs and, more importantly, Tank Dell left off before getting injured. And they're hoping that, along with Nico Collins, that those two can work in a big-time pairing like Tank Dell did with his speed, because obviously we don't know how Dell is really going to come off of that injury, if he's even going to come back at all. They really needed a big time replacement, and I think that Higgins can definitely fill that. Like I said, they needed it. They lost their franchise tackle in Laramie Tunsil, and a still head-scratching trade for me to the Washington Commanders. I still don't understand, when you have a playoff contending team, why you would trade the best offensive lineman on your roster. Stephon Diggs, like I said, was a little bit more understandable. Injury-riddled season, unproductive a little bit. There was some questions with him in the locker room and whatnot. But still, the pressure is now on C.J. Stroud more than ever, as this is arguably probably the least talented offense that he will walk into with the season with. The defense still has young stars, don't get me wrong. You have Will Anderson Jr., you have Derek Stingley, one of the top cornerbacks within the league. Joe Mixon potentially could work stuff in there. But again, the offensive line isn't great. They needed guard help, and the guard that they ended up signing was Laken Tomlinson. If you don't know about Laken Tomlinson's style of play, that's a good thing, because he's not a good left guard whatsoever, and that was their replacement. They signed Cam Robinson. If you don't know about Cam Robinson, one of the biggest, in my opinion, drop lists, potentially. Or is this the same Cam Robinson? I could potentially be thinking of a different one, but not a suitable left tackle. Titus Howard, they're going to have to move into right guard. They signed Ed Ingram at right guard. all of these guys just are not really great offensive linemen. So the running game is going to suffer. You don't know how Dell's going to come off of it. Schultz is aging. Kirk is plugged in there. You're hoping that could get in. Then obviously having Jaden Higgins in there to potentially get things going. Also Jaden Noel within round 3 as well. So you're hoping that these Iowa State guys can potentially bring you something in the deep threat speed department. But I think more than ever, Houston is going to be relying on their very, very talented defense. And again, defense is great, but at some point you have to be able to put points on the board. I always make Denver Bronco analogies because that's my favorite team. I remember that 2015 team that won the Super Bowl. And, early on that team was winning games because the defense was able to get stops and force turnovers. But later on in the season, they were forced to win games based on their offense being able to score points. That's what they needed. They couldn't just rely on that defense. And I feel like that is a very, very similar fate that this Houston Texans squad is going to end up facing. And that's really all I have for you guys today. So just a little bit of a recap on just the standings that I have. I have the Tennessee Titans coming in 4th at a record of about 4-13, 5-12. The Jacksonville Jaguars in 3rd at about 5-12, 6-11. Indianapolis Colts right there as well in 2nd at about 5-12, 6-11. And then the Houston Texans coming in 1st at 9-8. So let me know what you guys think about that preview, those predictions. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What are your predictions for this division? Who do you think is going to come out of it? Who do you think is going to be maybe a big time surprise that might be better than we think they're going to be? Like I said, it's a little bit of a uneventful division, but hey, we're always in and entertained by big time surprises within the NFL. So put all of those answers down below within the comment section, as well as subscribing, leaving a like, and sharing with your friends. And if you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on all social medias, that being TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. We're on all those social medias. You will get to see my latest reaction to breaking news within the NBA, NFL, and combat sports. And you will never get to miss for whenever the podcast uploads an episode. And without further ado, guys, that is all that I have for you guys today. I will see you guys on the next one. Have a great start to your week, and peace.